You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast, where we focus on financial strategies for building a profitable food business. I'm your host, Sarah Delavan. Today on the podcast, founder of Water Street Marketing and RangeMe expert Georgiana Dearing joins me to discuss what you can do to make the most of your financial investment in RangeMe. We're talking about what RangeMe is, the 3 membership levels, benefits of each, and when it's the right time for your business to level up. She's also sharing the 5 common mistakes that she sees food and beverage business owners making on the platform, the one drawback that she sees, and her proven tips for creating a successful RangeMe profile. If you've got a RangeMe account that isn't performing like you'd hoped, or you've been considering getting on the platform, this episode is for you. So let's get to it. Georgiana, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. As I mentioned in the intro, you're the founder of Water Street Marketing for manufacturers, and you help both national and regional brands sell in and sell through retail and distribution channels. And one of the specific services that you offer is RangeMe optimization. And when I learned about it, I thought to myself, this is such a great topic to bring to the podcast, and I could not wait to invite you here. Because when we talk about building financially sustainable food businesses, a lot of people think like we just cut costs and we just need to, minimize our expenses to maximize our profitability. But what we really do is take a look at our expenses and our investments and try to gain an understanding of what our return on those investments is. And what has been coming up time and time again with program members and clients is RangeMe, and many of them are seeing little to no return on their investment on the platform. So I'm so excited to have you here because I cannot wait to dive into what business owners can be doing to make the most of their financial investment in RangeMe. So thank you again for joining me here today.
Sure, I'm happy to talk to you about RangeMe. I've been talking about it for a really long time, so this is a great topic.
Fantastic. So for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with RangeMe, let's just pretend they're hearing this for the first time. Can you share with us what it is and what some of the benefits of RangeMe are?
Sure. It's a RangeMe is a sales tool, and it's a closed environment. It's a dashboard that allows you as a brand owner, and they cover everything, all packaged goods that you might want to sell at retail. So there's food, and then there's also cosmetics and lots of other things. But they allow a brand owner to put your products into this pool in a dashboard. And the lure of it is that a lot of the big retailers like Whole Foods and Petco are all making RangeMe a requirement if you're trying to get your brand in front of them to do business. And so brands look at it as a way of getting into those retailers, and it's a first step, but there's a lot more to it.
So interesting. So I didn't realize that many of the retailers that it was a requirement. That's new information to me. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, so there's plenty of brands out there that have relationships with like Whole Foods and others, that they're kind of grandfathered in. But if you have a new product and you want to get the attention of buyers, there are some businesses out there that literally have a link and it says, put your product on RangeMe. And it's a free tool. You can use it for free. You can make an account for free. It was started in Australia, actually, by this lady named Nikki Jackson, and she was a former executive for Kellogg's or PepsiCo, and she left the industry to start her family, and she had this great idea for a baby product. And the problem that she had is she could not get it in front of buyers, and so she sort of invented a way to get buyers to get new products in front of buyers. She made this sort of handshake relationship with this dashboard program, and the dashboard took off and her baby product failed. So she so so she built this dashboard, and then she started getting buy-in from the retailers because they like it, because it sort of levels the playing field. Everyone has to put their products into this tool the same way, so it kind of, they're trying to control the random input. And honestly, I made a big chunk of my career. I made money making these cold call, teaser packages and things that you would ship directly to the buyer. And when Sam Walton started saying, all right, we're going to cut all this junk out, you're just going to have a room and a table, the industry started to respond to that. Like, yeah, we're focused on the business only and not
Right.
all that sex appeal that can sometimes hide a company's readiness to be a good business partner. So that's why the buyers like RangeMe. The producers, I'm going to tell you, I hear many, many times, I spent all this money on RangeMe and I got nothing for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear similar things, which goes back to why you're here and why I'm so excited about today, because a lot of times people make upfront payments. So I know maybe we can talk about the financial investment in RangeMe. So as you mentioned, there is you can sign up for free. And I was checking out the website today before we got on this call, and they don't really offer much additional information from the outside regarding plans or levels of service or anything like that. So do you have any insight into any of that?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to find, but there's actually 3 levels now of being on the dashboard. And the first level is free. And then within the last year, they introduced this $300 level. And then they have the full-on service, which is running about $1,500 a year.
Okay.
And I'm going to add to this that RangeMe is now owned by ECRM. And ECRM is that they're sort of that middleman sales builder, where they have a long, long history of setting up these in-person meetings. You sort of pay to have access to their contacts within the industry. So there's that whole wing of ECRM, and then RangeMe is sort of the step one, right?
Okay.
Step one of getting into retail is you need to pass a few like sniff tests from the buyers. So you can set up a free dashboard, and when you get a free dashboard, it can be a little unsettling because it's a closed environment, right? As a producer, you can't see what anyone else is doing. All you can see is your dashboard, and that's so that people aren't stealing information or price setting, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a closed environment, and you can't see the buyers either. It's closed 2 ways, right?
Yeah.
And when you pay for the full-on service, that's when you are given permission to submit your dashboard directly to a retail buying team. And so, for instance, I'm going to use Whole Foods because that to me is like, that's always like the draw for an emerging brand. Like, I'm going to be in Whole Foods. Yeah. And it's like, well, there's a lot of steps to that. But Whole Foods, they broadcast their category review periods. Mm-hmm. And you get that information when you when you pay the account. When you pay the full $1,500, you get those buying signals from the retailers. So they'll say, for instance, I have a client who's got a frozen food, and I was looking at some back history of when they were getting interest on their profile, and they were getting interest around August 2019, which is also the category review period for frozen foods at Whole Foods. So Whole Foods was doing search on these terms, and their product line was coming up. And so when you have that paid account, you can see when you have appeared on a buyer's dashboard.
Gotcha.
So it's sort of like getting your search results within a closed environment. If you can think of a website, this dashboard is a site within a little tiny ecosystem, which is the RangeMe ecosystem. And you will appear in search depending on how your dashboard is set up.
Gotcha. And if you have the free or sort of that middle tier plan, you can still be found by buyers. I assume they can search for you.
As soon as you're on there, you can be found. Like
Okay.
I put a site up, and within a week they were getting direct messaged from some interested buyers.
But you just can't see who those interested buyers are unless you're on the top tier account level.
If they message you, you know who they are. They're
Right.
they're identifying themselves to you, and so these were independent grocers
Gotcha.
who also use RangeMe. So on the basic free plan, you get your product listing, which means you'll show up in search results. You have access to RangeMe messaging, which is buyers can request samples or buyers can message you, but it's incoming only. You don't get any buyer contacts until they make the first move. The other thing that you can do is there's a little share your profile button, and you can click that and push your profile out to any email contact that you have. So you can actually, which is how I first became aware of RangeMe, is some food brands that I had been working with, a couple of them emailed me from their dashboard. And they emailed me, and I thought, wow, I can see this. And I could see all the things I think you're doing wrong, but I could see everything. Like I could see that one of our brands had grossly overstated their marketing budget. They said they had $50,000 to spend on marketing, and I thought that's not true. That's not a good move, because it sets an expectation that you can't fulfill. So that's what you get on the basic level. You just kind of get the dashboard. You do get some onboarding help. I have found their customer service to be really, really helpful. They answer questions. And when you create a product listing, it doesn't go live immediately. It actually gets reviewed before it becomes live on your page. And they're just making sure you've filled in all the things that make sense. And I've had a client have a product rejected because they entered their wholesale costs and their retail costs. They said, your margin is like 200%. That can't be right. And so somebody is looking at it and really paying attention before it goes live. So that's what you get on the free account. Then there's a mid-tier now that they introduced. It's $300 a year, and that adds a few features to the profile. And one of them, the one that is most value, is you can generate sell sheets on the fly. So if you have 20 varieties of a product, but you're trying to get into a store, and you know that the top three, the three facings that a store should have are A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. You can generate a sell sheet that pulls all your data. It's a PDF. You can email it. You can add a QR code if you want. So if you're going to a show or going somewhere else, you can see if that data has moved around. It's a tiny bit of a CRM tool, so you get that add-on with the $300 a year. The other thing that you get at $300 a year is you can see activity on your dashboard. And the two things that it tracks is views, meaning your brand has showed up on a buyer's dashboard. So that's your search activity. And then there's page visits. So if they clicked through to your dashboard and looked at it, you can see when they visited your page, how long they spent, what products they looked at. And that's valuable to know. If you are trying to get a buyer's attention, you can see what is bubbling up in search.
Yeah.
And you can see, are people looking at you, right? And typically, I will see a buyer on a site. They'll spend about 3 minutes. And then as you keep showing up in search, the time on your page gets less and less because they go, oh, yeah, I already decided I wasn't kind of interested in them, or oh, I don't see anything new, or oh yeah, that's not a right fit. So you can almost see a bit of human behavior happening, and that you get that at that $300 level, which I think is absolutely worth it. Like, and it gives you an opportunity to get in and engage with the dashboard without really making a dramatic financial commitment.
Yeah, that's great.
On the premium account, you get that magic verification where you submit all of your business details. They want to make sure you have insurance. They want to make sure, like, are you a sole proprietor, or are you an LLC? Are you an S Corp? They want to see that. And that's sort of the, oh yeah, this brand is ready to become a partner of a retail business.
Okay. I think I saw something on the website. It was like RangeMe verified or something like that.
Right.
Is that what you're relating to? Okay.
Yeah, that's what they do. So they perform this first level of review for all of their buying partners. They'll go through and they'll ask you to submit things, and if you submit your insurance paperwork in February, but it expires in July, they'll send you a message.
Right.
Hey, do you still have insurance? And they'll, did you pay that? Are you still ready? And they keep tabs on those fundamentals of being a selling partner.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of part of the function that they perform for their buyers. And while they use these big retail brands as a draw, they will say to you, we are here to make the introduction. You have to make the sale. And
I feel like I want to have flashing lights around that statement, right? Like, big takeaway number one, right? RangeMe is there to make the introduction, and you have to make the sale. I love that.
Yeah, and it's flat out like true. And I've seen some pretty established brands not perform that well because they're not putting the content that they need to they're not putting their suit and tie on.
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
well, I'm here, but they're not putting all the other stuff in to do that silent salesman work for you when you're not there, and the buyer is just scrolling around trying to meet their deadlines, their goals. Their boss is asking them to do something. RangeMe is like the beginning of the search, and they're going to go offline. They're going to Google you offline. They're going to go see if you're on Amazon. They're going to look at all those things outside of just RangeMe. But if you think about it, like kind of Facebook stalking, they're doing a little bit of they're doing that in this dashboard. They're like, man, is this person going to help me meet my numbers?
Right.
And if you don't have a buttoned up presence, they're like, I don't have time to teach this person how to get ready to do business with me.
Right. And that's probably a good segue into what you do. But can we talk a little bit more before we do that about some of the other mistakes that you see founders or brands making on RangeMe? So one, I love the way you put it's not wearing their suit and tie, or having that expectation that like, well, I'm here and I'm present on the platform and everything's just going to happen, kind of for me.
That's absolutely the first one. Is like, okay, I put my stuff in here. when's the sale going to happen?
Right.
It's like it's not a replacement for that. It's a vetting process.
Yeah.
You know, so that the number one mistake I see is people put their stuff in there and then they sit back and wait.
Right.
The other mistake I see is some misrepresentation, right? Like I see some small brands trying to present as if they're more than they are, and that's actually more harmful than good, because there is a lot of activity in pretty big brands about wanting to nurture and grow local and regional brands.
Mm-hmm.
And they're okay with a brand. They would rather bring somebody on in like 3 locations and then add a few and add a few,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, the worst thing for everybody is to have one side thinking that there's going to be 500,000 units moving in 6 months, and the producer not being able to hit that. Like, everybody's unhappy.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing. Don't misrepresent how small you are, because it's okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people find value in that. You know.
Yeah,
in a small brand.
And I will say too, there's one other thing that you get at that $1,500 level. And that is, you get some industry insights. You can drill down into your category and you can look at your pricing compared to the pool of products in your category on RangeMe.
Okay.
And you can see what's moving at what price point. You can see where your pricing and your margins are against the rest of the pool. And that doesn't necessarily inform you about what your pricing should be, because if you're extraordinarily special ingredients, then you are going to have a higher price. But it does help you position yourself within that category in the language that you use, so that you are finding partners that work for you. So that is one other thing that I think is a benefit to an emerging brand, is like you can get some data out of this dashboard about what it's like to play with the big boys, you know.
Yeah.
And $1,500 a year for, you know, even if you just sign up for 1 year, you've got a year of data and you've got a year of that cycle, and, you know, you can come back. If you think of it that way, it's like, okay, well, what would it cost me to get a report on my elderberry syrup 8-ounce glass bottle?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't, you know, how do I play in the homeopathic space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's, you know, you could spend a lot trying to get that data. And so it's helpful. The other really big one is they bring everything from their consumer website over and they put it in the buyer site. So their about story is the romance and not the business relationship. When they go to do a submission, they don't talk about what kind of partner they are. They talk about we're a couple that believes in the wholesome quality of our ingredients. And at the point of getting into retail, taste and quality are going to be a given.
Right.
Right? What a buyer wants from you is what you know about your industry, and how what you know about your industry will make you a better partner for them. And they really want you to know who your best partners are. So that's the other mistake that people make, is they are using the part that they have been saying face to face with consumers, or, you know, the romance that you do when you're kind of doing a tasting, you're at a trade show. But at the end of the day, this is a business transaction, and they want to know, who are you going to help me make my goal?
Yeah. How are we going to get this product off the shelf once it's on the shelf? Yeah. How can we help each other? Right. Yeah. It's business. Fantastic. I love those four, you know, kind of common mistakes that folks are making. So What are things that a successful RangeMe account, I don't know if I'm wording that right, would have on it? Any tips in that regard?
So the other drawback
Oh,
about
okay.
okay, I'm going to say this really. The
Yeah.
drawback about RangeMe is your view is a tiny little brand card. It's a teeny tiny little thing. But it has your banner, and it has your logo, and has your feature product. And when you go to do a submission, you get 500 characters only to say, here's why I'm a good partner.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That stresses me out. I'm such a numbers person, but 500 words to like
yeah,
fill you
yeah.
in. Okay, so that's important.
So
Thank you for sharing that.
so a successful RangeMe account, you've got a banner image that is selling your brand for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have a legible logo avatar. You have good quality catalog photography, which when I say catalog, I mean straight on product, white background, clear label. You're going to want retail ready product labels, um, which means not only is it meeting sort of all of the FDA guidelines for food and beverage labeling, but it's also setting the right customer expectations. That's important, right? You need to have attractive
Yeah.
packaging that when the buyer looks at it, he goes, oh, my shoppers are going to know what to do with this immediately.
Yeah.
You know. Then you're going to use appropriate search terms in your product descriptions, and you get 3 USPs with unique selling propositions. So you want to leverage those to be the most attractive. What terms we're going to show up on search, which is another piece of data you can get in the industry information. Like gluten-free is still trending really strong.
Right.
Organic trends strong. There are things in there that you want to have in those USPs. Then you want to have all of your certifications in there if you're certified. And then you want to have product descriptions that are going to move the needle for you with buyers. So it's going to be more about where it performs well. Like here in Virginia, there's a certification that does not show up in the auto-populated list of RangeMe, which is Virginia Finest. Virginia Finest is something that our state does. You can put that in your product description, and I see that when we do that for Virginia brands, I see their brands bubble up in search because there's a bunch of independent retailers in the state that want to carry Virginia-made products.
Yeah.
And like Kroger has a call out now for regional products, and somebody else. There's 2 big retailers right now that are specifically asking for products in this sort of Eastern Seaboard region because they're paying attention to their shelf. They want to have local brands. And then you want to have as much valuable information to the buyer as you can get. So they're going to want to know. They want your UPC code. They want your nutrition label. They want to know your package size. They want to know, do you have an inner carton? They want to know, does your case have a UPC? Everything that you can fill out in that regard is also a signal, hey, I know what I'm doing in the food industry. They want to know where you're being sold. They want to know, are you carried with a distributor? They offer you drop downs of the more nationally, regionally recognized ones, but then you can also include that in your product descriptions. And then the other thing you need to do is actively maintain that information. So as your business grows, update those product descriptions to reflect your success. Because you may be you may be cruised by a buyer for a while, and then as they see you growing,
Mm-hmm.
they are like, oh, yeah, let me put a bookmark on that and come back to them.
That's such a great point. Or they, somehow see you maybe not during category review time for your particular product, and they circle
Mm-hmm.
back to you, or, something. That's great. So it seems like something I was noticing as you were talking is, obviously there are factual information about your product that you need to provide to the buyer, but you also have to know who the right potential partners are for you. And you sort of mentioned that earlier on. And when you know that, and you can make decisions and add information to your profile that speaks to those buyers specifically, it seems like that's an important part of having a successful RangeMe profile.
Oh, right. That's absolutely part of it, and the key to it, really. So I'm going to use an example. We have a small brand that we set up at the beginning of 2020, and almost immediately they submitted their brand. This is another mistake. There are 5,
Okay.
and the big one is get on, pay the bill, submit to everyone, spray and pray. And it's like they and they used up those 500 characters on all the wrong words. And you're only allowed to submit once every 12 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you want to do is be strategic about that. And I get that suppliers feel throttled by all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But this tool is gaining ground, and if it's not RangeMe, it's going to be something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are other digital dashboards out there. There are other things. So this is just like the beginning of really the direction buying is going to go. So later in the year, this startup that sort of did the spray and pray approach, we were able to say, hey, let us do this monitoring for you. And we took over from October to December, and we went through and looked at the remaining retailers that were there, and we looked at some of the category review periods, and we started strategically writing specific submissions to that brand about why we are a good partner for them in this particular category and where we would look best in the store.
Wow.
And so that happened in that sort of 3-month window. We did a bunch of submissions in November and December, partly because they had some holiday seasonal flavors that generally buyers will be looking at the season while they're in the season for a year later.
Right.
Right? Because it can take 6 to 9 months to close a deal with a buyer when you go through all the things from first pass to, you start getting product into the store. So we submitted a bunch of things and spoke specifically to this holiday flavor, and we started to get the fruit of that work in March, April, and May of this year. So if you think November to March, that's how long it took to get kind of a response. And they actually said no to a couple queries because this brand really knows what they're good at, and what came back to them in the request, we are interested in working with you on this, and that. And their response was, no, we don't really want to grow that way at this time. But we got answers,
Yeah.
and that's like good information. And it doesn't close the door forever. It's like, no, this is not the deal we want right now.
So just pointing out that that 500 character box that you have, you can customize that each time you submit. So you can get very focused and very specific. That's
Right.
great. Okay. But it's
Yeah.
great, but it takes time and it takes thought and it takes energy, right? Someone has to really be thinking about that and doing a good job with it for it to work.
Yeah, you have to understand, like, we do some research into the retailer and we look at what they're carrying and we go, is this even worth it?
Yeah.
What would we do? Who would we bump out, or what would we add? And there's another brand that I work with that has like a cheese cracker, and they do not do well in the center of the store in the snack aisle, but they do amazing in deli. And so that is what. So then okay, I actually don't want the cracker buyer. I want the deli buyer.
Right.
And I want to send to the deli people, and I want to make this case, and I want to back it up with data.
Right.
And that is what gets a buyer's attention, because you know your brand so well that you can tell them how they're going to be successful with you.
Yeah. So we've talked about the common mistakes. I think there was maybe 5 of them that really stand out to you. And we talked about, the things that a good RangeMe profile will have. And I'm sure that there are business owners listening today who are thinking, this sounds great. I would love to get on RangeMe. I understand the potential value here and what it can bring to my business to sort of streamline, right? Reaching these people and understanding, what buyers are looking for. But I don't have the time. And I'm not an expert in writing these 500 character, intros for my brand. So how can you and how does Water Street Marketing help founders with this process?
So the first thing that we do is we will set up and or optimize an existing RangeMe dashboard for you. So a lot of times we get people who are on there and it's like, I'm not performing, please help.
Right.
And so we'll fix everything. We'll go through the whole product line and we'll set it up. And then we offer a monitoring service where what we do is just watch the activity and bring it to the attention of the sales team. If the sales team feels like that they can move on all of these things, we'll at least monitor activity and say, hey, this is what's going on. These people are paying attention. This, right now QVC has a thing that QVC and HSN are looking for a great find.
Oh, wow.
What's a cool product? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Right?
So then it's like, all right, this came up, and here's what that means for you. Here's what we know about participating on QVC and HSN. Does this feel like something that you want to take a gamble on right now?
That's fascinating. So you not only take a look at the profile itself, but you're keeping an eye on who's looking for product when, and if your clients are a good fit potentially. And this is like an element of coaching or strategy outside of just building the profile.
Yeah, so at the very minimum, we'll help you get your profile set up, and then we'll do monitoring, which is the next low level. We'll just monitor, and we go into all of the accounts that we manage, and we see what's going on, and you get sort of we have a shared document that you can look at anytime, and we do a little summary alert, like here's what you need to know about May.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they can act on it, and then the next level is we'll do the submissions for you as well, and we'll so it really depends on how much do you want to turn over to us and how much do you want your sales team to do.
Yeah.
And if you have a salesperson that you want to be in charge of this, then what we'll do is we'll do training and get them set up. Like these are the things you need to think about when you're looking at this thing.
I guess a little light bulb that's going off in my mind is there might be opportunities that founders aren't even thinking about. Like HSN and QVC might not have been on someone's radar, right? I didn't know that they could have been a potential partner for me. And being on this platform and having some eyes on it, brings that to your attention. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, so if we take on somebody from zero, right, the very first thing we're going to do is say, let us set up your free platform,
Yeah.
and get it as optimized as possible before we even put any money into a paid service from them. Like, let's do all that work, get you in the groove of maybe emailing leads from your dashboard, because it's a nice, really buttoned up presentation.
Yeah.
So if you've visited a store and then you email from them from that dashboard, you go back and like, oh, there's all the product, there's my about story, there's my what a great partner I am, there's my data. That's like bare minimum use of it.
Yeah.
And then we say pay for the $300 account. So, because we're going to start seeing what's showing up on that search, like what is happening in that search, and we'll monitor that stuff, because there is a lot of activity that happens down there that is never in that submissions pane. I have a hickory syrup brand that regularly gets trolled by the Hawaiian resort. And I think it's because they have a food service offering, and hickory is sort of a revered ingredient in the Pacific Rim countries, and so they are looking at this going, do I really want to pay the shipping to have this come over so that I can offer it on my brunch buffet?
Wow. Yeah.
So you see that going, and I literally could pick up the phone and call that hotel and that buyer and have a conversation if it was even remotely appealing to my client. But I've seen food co-ops that have 4 stores cruising for specific products. We have Elwood Thompson is a one-off independent grocer in Virginia, and they search all of my Virginia brands. They're looking at what's going on in there. Their buyer is using it. So on the buying side, there's different levels, just like there is for the seller side. And that activity shows up in that page views, and then you can see that in your $300 subscription. And then the next thing is, are you ready to start considering the big brands? And that, or literally, if you want to be a new brand in Whole Foods, you do the paid thing.
This has been so helpful. And, from where I sit, I just have such a better understanding of the potential value of the platform, and like I said, at the beginning of the episode, it's from a financial perspective, right? We want to be investing in things that have a potential for a good financial return. And what I'm hearing, what's really sticking out in my brain, is the ability to identify and to be connected with folks that might not have been on your radar, who you didn't know could have been interested, that might be a great fit for your brand. And the efficiency with which you can reach out to, and the specificity with which you can reach out to those potential partners that would be a great fit for your brand, right? And that you can connect with there. So I just want to thank you for sharing all of the information that you have, because it's been super insightful for me. And I'm sure that many of the brands and business owners listening today feel the same way. Before we officially wrap up, is there anything else that you feel like it's really important for business owners to know, either about RangeMe, or maybe as they think about making the decision to sign up for the platform?
Step 1 is use some caution. Like, consider it, and then think about, is it a tool that I'm going to really use?
Yeah.
Because I really think that people wrestle with that paid account for a really long time, and then when they pay it, it's like a painful thing, Yeah. And I'm like, just use caution, go in slowly and learn it. And then leverage everything that you've done there, because there's all those other digital platforms. Like, I don't get anything from RangeMe for promoting it. I'm just saying, like, this is happening.
Yeah.
It's happening in the industry. And you need to understand how to use this tool, because this, particularly after the pandemic, this is how purchasing is happening.
Yeah.
It's happening through a digital means first.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for joining me here today. If folks are interested in connecting with you and learning more about your RangeMe optimization service and the other services that you offer, where is the best place to find you online?
You can go to our website, h2ostreet.com, H2O like oxygen, waterstreet.com. And you can, there's a contact me form there. Another place you can find me, I am the Virginia Foodie, and I have vafoodie.com, and there's a little grow your brand button on vafoodie.com, which will direct people to a lot of our marketing services.
Fantastic. And we'll list both of those links as well as some of the other links of where folks can find you in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much for your time and for such valuable information today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Sure, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you haven't yet, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to this podcast. It's the #1 way that you can show your support for the show and help us reach more food and beverage business owners. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join us in the free Profitable Food Business community. You can grab the link to join in the show notes. Once again, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again with a brand new episode in 2 weeks. Until then, have a good one.